Hey y'all, welcome to this week's Real Talk. Today is Wednesday, March 9th, and this is a weekly video check-in series that we do here at Herndon United Methodist Church. I'm Scott Bach Hansen, Director of Congregational Care and Adult Discipleship, and this guy you might recognize is our Senior Pastor, Jonathan Page, and we are here to share a really cool announcement today, and the announcement is that we are going to be doing a podcast here at the church. And it's an idea. We actually both came up with an idea of a podcast, and we meshed them together. I can't even say meshed.
Hey, it's all good.
We meshed them together, and we came up with this idea. And it's a great opportunity for us to be able to share with you the behind the scenes on what happens of putting a sermon together. And so we're going to pull the curtain back during this podcast, and every Sunday we're going to record the podcast. Will be available every Monday going forward. This week's will be a little bit later. And so once you see this, you should be able to go on the website and be able to download it and be able to subscribe to the podcast. And it's called Behind the Sermon. And it's, again, something that we are starting because we felt like it was a great opportunity to share details about how the sermon came together, amongst some other things. I don't want to take too much away from Pastor Jonathan, but it also is a great opportunity for those of us like myself that are getting into ministry or wanting to be involved in how to put sermons together, how to put in sermon series together. And so it's something that we're really excited about doing. And if nothing else, we just get to talk for 30, 45 minutes together every week. So, Jonathan, tell us about what your mindset was behind this.
Yeah, well, first off, it was what a novel idea to have a couple of white guys do another podcast. That just really was the first thing that came to mind. But in all seriousness, just I think it's important to give folks a lens into just what goes into the creation and craft of a message. I think that's one of the things. I'm fortunate enough to get the opportunity to speak to folks on a relatively regular basis about sermon creation and really sermon preparation. I'm a big believer that the preparation of what we do in a message is usually a big part of the story of how that ends up landing and what we end up getting out of it. And so just getting to share with folks a little bit more about the intention that goes behind the creation of our messages, what some of the background research is like. What you'll find, a couple of different things I would just encourage you with is, number one, we want to have a way to be able to communicate beyond Sunday mornings. We have Real Talk, we have a lot of things that happen on our Instagram page, our weekly e-news, all that sort of thing. So this is just another layer of how we communicate with our congregation and being able to have something that is primarily audio. Some of you, I don't know if you know this, Scott, but I have a friend of mine once said, you have a face for the radio. And I thought that was a really wise statement. So, some folks would say, I don't want to have to look at all the shine that's happening in here. Others might just say, hey, I really prefer more of an audio kind of connection. And so this is a way of being able to do that. But as Scott mentioned, week in and week out, a couple of things that you can look forward to in this pod are, first off, it's very conversational. It is not Sermon 2.0. It's not an idea where we're going to come in and be like, all right, well, let's re-preach the sermon. It's really kind of navigating some of the preparation process. What goes in, so for example, a big churchy word I would use is like the exegetical work. So that means kind of the reading of the scriptural text and some of the different commentaries that are there and just some of the themes that come out from that and how we get in to understanding, well, how do we come to select the different scriptures that we use as a part of a worship service? That'll be a big part of it. Every week you'll probably hear something about what was left on the cutting room floor, because the reality is when I'm preaching, when Scott's preaching, anybody's preaching, usually in the preparation process, you have like this big laundry list of things that you want to say, and then it turns out we don't have all day to talk, so we end up with a few things that don't make it in. And so being able to kind of talk through, well, here's why we chose this idea versus something else. But even giving a window and insight into some of those places. And then like Scott said, so this week you'll hear a reflection on this past Sunday's message that was called Cultivate Character. It's the first in our series called God and the Good Life. And so anytime we're starting off a sermon series, we'll talk a little bit about, hey, how did this come into being? Like what was it about this series that seemed creative, seemed interesting, and just being able to talk through that a little bit. So again, it's really just kind of a behind the scenes window. I think it's going to be great for our Herndon United Methodist community, for folks to be able to have a little bit more insight into into how we come up with what we do in worship. But even more than that, for folks who are interested in the craft of preaching, for those who maybe beyond preaching, who are public speakers or things like that, there's some insight in there too. So yeah, and it's a cool thing to just be able to hang out with my buddy Scott every week and talk through that. And what's really great, it's again because it's conversational. It's not like just me talking. It's not just Scott talking. It's a conversation. And some weeks I'll be needing to reflect on it as the preacher, but not every week because Scott preaches. We've got a week coming up where Joanne Badiger, our director of student ministries, is going to be preaching. So you'll find guests will hop on from time to time. So anyways, I think it'll be a pretty cool thing. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's give them a little bit of insight. So,
Okay.
I mean, you don't just roll out of bed Sunday morning and go, you know what? I think I'm going to talk about this week, right? There's a lot of planning that goes into it.
Yeah.
And so you talked about the exegetical process, but
Yeah.
you know, how long does it take on average? You know, it probably take me longer than it takes you because you've been doing it for so long. But
Not
how
necessarily.
long
Yeah.
does it take you to put a sermon together?
Yeah, the rule of thumb is that for every minute that I speak, it's going to be about an hour of preparation. So like this past week, we actually we're recording this Real Talk video coming out of staff meeting this week. We went back and looked at this week's message to try and figure out how long it was because it took forever. That's not totally fair. But it was a little bit longer than normal. I think it was like 25 minutes or something like that. And I can attest that this week, the preparation process actually starts long before the week of the sermon. So it starts with sermon planning retreats and kind of discerning what we're going to talk about at any time. But all in for this week, it was probably 25 to 30 hours of preparation. And that's great. Like I love doing that. It's time well spent, but it is. It takes a couple minutes to put that sort of thing together.
You know, it's interesting you said that because as somebody that's new and coming in and, you know, is a complement to the normal sermons that happen, one of the things that I try to be cognizant of is I don't want to be too long, especially as a new,
Sure.
a new person coming in and preaching. I almost said pastor, not yet, a couple months ago.
That's right. It's coming.
But the cool thing about it is, like, I might try to say, okay, I'm going to try to be between 15 and 20 minutes. And sometimes it just works out that way, but other times it's just about what does God want me to say.
100%.
And I think that's the big thing that a lot of people don't understand. And we try to do some things to connect with the sermons to make them more personal. We share personal stories.
Sure.
You may have heard my sermon on Ash Wednesday. I shared about my friend Rick. And sometimes those personal touches really connect us well. And I hope that you hear that and you hear. Like a perfect example is, Jonathan, and I forget the family's last name because I never met them, but the family from Moldova that used to be members
The
here.
Benassos, yeah, of course.
And so that's a perfect example of the cutting room floor. He had a totally different ending to the sermon, and then it just changed because you got an email at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely, yeah.
So sometimes what you'll find is we change things on the fly, and I will tell you in my Ash Wednesday service, I changed something at 5:30, and the sermon. The service started at 7, so those things just happen. So I hope that you'll enjoy this. I really think that it'll be an opportunity for you, if nothing else, to get some more insight. Like maybe, and it's okay. Look, I have ADHD. Sometimes I drift off in the service and I go, oh, what did he just say?
Yeah.
Great opportunity to come back, watch it, hear what we have to share. Maybe there's something that stands out to you. Go, I wasn't really sure what Jonathan meant there, but wow, that provides more clarity. And the cool thing about being podcast, besides the fact you don't have to see us, is we all do things. We have long drives to work
sure.
or to other things throughout the week, but we also, you could just be cleaning the house, could just be hanging out, cleaning out the garage, getting ready to do that with springtime coming up. Just listen in the background, and maybe something speaks to you. So,
well, and I think what ends up being really cool, there are a lot of traditions where actually preparation is like looked down upon, and it's sort of, you've got to go up there, like you come with whatever knowledge you have, you read whatever the appointed text is, and like you spit out some stuff. And I just, one of the things that I've grown in my belief of over the years in ministry is that the Holy Spirit works through the preparation process. And I think that means something for each of us too, because in your work, whether it's your life's work and it's like a job that you attend to, or maybe it's the work of family, it could be any kind of work that you're invested in, mission, whatever it may be. So often being able to prepare is a part of being successful, but the Spirit's active in the preparation process too. And so that's again really just kind of what we're trying to emphasize here. It's also not, let's be really clear, this isn't a like, hey, look at us and how much time we're putting in and like all, like a goo goo gaga kind of thing. It's really more of a like, hey, we just want to lend a little bit more insight into what's happening in the life of our community, how we come to this space, and we think it's interesting. And if nothing else, the two of us get to hang out and chat, and if a couple people can benefit from it, that's awesome.
Well, and I will tell you, I'm a little bit greedy about this. I'm actually writing exegetical papers for school, so it's a great opportunity for me to, maybe get some extra insight. I just got a grade back on a rough draft of one that I have some work to do. So, but I think it's really important for me just to, be able to. And look, Jonathan is such a great resource, and the conference thinks so, and the district thinks so too, because he's going to be teaching at licensing school for us that are becoming new pastors on just putting sermon series together, putting the sermon together, preparation, all those things. So it's a great resource for me to learn from you to learn from, and hopefully we'll learn together. So we're looking forward to it. You want to give a plug to this coming weekend? Anything you want to share?
Yeah. So we're continuing the series, God and the Good Life. This week we're talking about two of the elements in one. It's of the Good Life Method. It's a book that we've been reading, by the way. If you're interested in that, you can just go to herndonumc.org, and there's information about how you can obtain one of those books. We're going to be doing a big discussion about that book in April, and I'm excited for that. But this week we're going to talk about two of the elements of the idea of God and the good life, and it's trusting authority and questioning everything. Those don't sound like they would really match together, but in that paradox, there's something really beautiful. I'm so excited for this. Our director of music and worship ministries, Melissa Chavez, is
so
going
talented.
to.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, we have an amazingly talented team here. The two of us removed. Just kidding. But no, we're really blessed by Melissa and our whole team, and so she is memorizing a number of chapters of the Bible to be able to share the story of Abraham, specifically sort of Abram's call, Abram's transition to Abraham, and then the story of Abraham and Isaac. And if you know anything about that, what you'll know is that this is a massive, massive underscoring of the importance of trust. If you don't know anything about it, what's really cool is that the story includes a lot of space for questions, and to be able to say that even in the places of deep trust, even in the places of like deep calling, that there are opportunities in this life to ask it questions, and that questions are not meant to come from places of fear, but places of trust. That it's not a discouragement, but an opportunity. And so I think we're going to get into a lot of cool stuff this weekend. I'm excited to continue the preparation process. Actually, when we finish recording this, I've got a meeting, and then I'll be writing this afternoon. And so I'm excited to do that, and excited to share this week's message with you this weekend on Sunday at 10 a.m. in Doe Fellowship Hall. That'll also be live streamed at youtube.com/HerndonUMC, and then at 5 o'clock we have our relaxed traditional service in the church sanctuary. We'll be there. We'll be worshiping God together. We'll hear some hopefully good stuff, and we'll be discovering how God's a part of the good life.
So I prefer to question authority, but I'll have to listen to the sermon this weekend and realize that I need to listen to authority. So anyway, look, we're really excited about this. We hope that you'll enjoy this podcast too, and just be able to get a different insight than maybe you had before. So for my special guest, the big guy, Pastor Jonathan, I am so excited you're here. We hope to see you this weekend and hope you have a great week. Take care.